I'm excited tonight to look forward, but before we look forward, and I kind of pass it over to Ikaika to share a little bit about, what he's been thinking and what the organization's been thinking about this opportunity to create a story map that can serve some important purpose and serve their community well, serve their mission well. I do want to just sort of reflect on a couple of points. So first, I'll just throw up a quick agenda, just so everyone knows what we're going to get ourselves into tonight. But really simple, just the short introduction and some reminders, and for you all to share with your hui and just for yourselves, and then a quick reflection on the Mauna Lua experience. I think I saw Paige sharing a little bit in the chat as well. People can share that way if people want to kind of talk story or ask questions about that experience. I'm going to share a couple of my reflections, and then see what other Mana'o people would like to share on the Mauna Lua experience, because we are going to start building that story map, we hope pretty soon. We have a really cool group of students from the Wipeout crew at Kaiser High School in Mauna Lua, what's known as Hawaii Kai by many people now, but in Mauna Lua, who are interested in learning the GIS platform and kind of joining as a hui. So I'm excited about that. And I'll pass it over to Ikaika, and we can have hear a little bit from him and talk story a little bit about what we're hoping to create out of our experience in Waimnalo. And then there's a little set of tools that we're going to experiment with and play with on Saturday that I wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to introduce. So a recording of this session will be shared out tomorrow. There was also a recent training, a GIS and story mapping training this past Saturday morning. And the link to that is available on our story map. It's on Mighty Networks, and I think I included it in a recent email as well. So, and that training covered at least the Survey 1, 2, 3 portion of what we're going to talk about today, but we'll sort of revisit that. We're really excited to be doing some cool work with drones, and especially a tool that we have access to through our ArcGIS accounts called Drone to Map, where we can create really high resolution, beautiful, up-to-date maps, including 3D maps of our communities and our places using a process called photogrammetry, and the drone images. So we're going to show that showcase that process. If you're zooming in with us, I don't want to make any too big promises, but if you're zooming in with us on Saturday morning, you should get to actually see that we're going to share screen from the phone that's going to be flying our drone. So you should get to see Pahonu and this environment from the sky, which is live, which is pretty exciting. We'll also be looking at how to create 3D models using close range photogrammetry, which is also the method that was really pioneered by Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology. Many of you will know Ruth Gates, who sadly passed, I think now a couple years ago, but had a really profound influence on the marine and ocean science community, especially in studying corals. And they pioneered this process to model and map 3D reefs in 3D. But we're gonna showcase some techniques to do that, and you guys all have access to some really interesting 3D modeling tools that I haven't shared too much about, but we'll talk a little bit more about that tonight and again on Saturday and next week. And then we also have our 360-degree camera. It's called a GoPro Max, which is an interesting tool, a fairly accessible tool for creating virtual reality and immersive environments. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. And all of these tools that we're showcasing and using are going to be tools that we want to support you in using as well, whether they already exist in your community or we need to help get them into your community for this. Many of you, I think, know that by completing this story map and hopefully creating a plan of action for resilience and regeneration in your community, you actually have an opportunity to receive up to $1,000 for your work, and that work might go towards, at least in part, to some of these technologies that you find super interesting and helpful. So just sort of keep that in mind as we go through. So the first thing, I'm going to stop sharing real quick, and also welcome. We have a few folks who are coming in right now, so super excited to see the Vargas Ohana, and who else did we just welcome in? So cool. And Christina Conrad, great. I love that. All right, so are there any questions about the agenda or any points that people want to make about that? All right, then I'm going to share my screen again for a couple of reminders before we chat about Mauna Lua. The first one is that we have, I think, a really cool piece of technology that's become part of our Canoe that I'm really excited to use, and it's this platform called Mighty Networks. And many of you, maybe all of you, have already joined. I've been using it as a tool to try to communicate about what's going on in the program, but I've also been doing email. But the thing is I'm really interested in how to create a way for all of our communities to connect and stay connected, regardless of how often I'm emailing you. I just want to point out that there are features in here. All of you have, almost all of you, I think, maybe all of you, if you've joined the platform, you have a hui that exists now in the Mighty Networks page. This is a platform that you can use. It's private to just you and your hui. One of you will have been designated a host. The hui captain will have been designated a host. You can invite other people into that space. And within that hui, you're going to have the capability of chatting privately within your group, sending private messages or resources or ideas. And so I encourage you to experiment with ways that you can use that. But I also know that on the main page, there are ways to see who's online. You can use the chat feature. This chat button is up in the upper right-hand corner, so you can open the chat. Most of the resources from the program, including our events, are here. I see Jennifer just posted an amazing Mega Lab project. So yeah, really, I actually got to go see some of the work they were doing mapping pipeline. And yeah, stoked for that. Had a great conversation with both Cliff and John Burns at Mega Lab, and I'll share a little bit more about that in a little bit. So it's a place for us to share resources with one another, organize for those of you, for example, who were really interested in what 3R Water was doing when we were in Mauna Lua. Lauren is part of the platform, and we're going to create a hui within Mighty Networks for those who are interested in engaging with the Follow the Drop app and becoming certified and going through some of the elements of training that she talked about with us. So please take advantage of this. I really believe that the success of this program has very little to do with me and a lot more to do with what you and your hui are doing in your communities and how you're connecting with other hui. So I would love for hui captains and huis to have exchanges, to be talking about their story maps with one another, to really be leaning into that relationship, kind of a network of relationships, which is why we jumped into Mighty Network. So please check that out. Also, all of these videos will be available to you on other platforms, but I am curating a playlist that will include videos that go beyond just the videos that we make for this program. So I'm starting, you'll see, I think one example as this opens, I've put in this aerial photogrammetry video that I found and I've shared because I thought it was really useful and concise in explaining how aerial photogrammetry worked. And we might even watch that just a little bit later. But it's here on this Future Navigators playlist that's been shared with you, and you're welcome to look back and view any of the different pieces of the experience that we've had so far. I've been trying to record and put out these videos as we go. So tonight's video, the training with Charlie and Katie was on Vimeo, so I can't add it to this playlist, but it is included on our story map. Another important reminder is that I shared this folder. Let's see if I can go. There was a folder shared with you. This is not actually it, the one that I'm showing you, but we have I guess it's going to be in shared drives. This might be where I just was, but Yeah, there's a folder called Session Media, and this folder has been shared with you. So you can add content to anything inside this Session 1 folder. We'll have something similar for Session 2. I've got to sort out with Ikaika the best way that he'd like to be able to access any media and data that's collected. But for example, we can go to this videos folder and we can see a lot of the videos that were created throughout the day. Most of those were created by me, but there's a folder in here where Jack produced some pretty awesome drone footage of our sail in the morning. So we have drone footage of our time on Uluvehi with Austin Kino. So that footage is there, and anything that's put in here is available to the whole group. So you should know that. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool that we're going to be able to share content in that way. And I hope that people will take advantage of that this becomes a place where we can see all of these places through each other's eyes in lots of different ways. So just know that you'll have access to that. There will be another session media folder, I think, for our Waimnalo version. The other reminder really quickly is just that we have a form to sign up. I've asked that it be submitted today. We've got looks like great numbers for both sessions, but we do have room for a few more. Kimiona wanted me to, I think, pass on the message that Malo are welcomed. So, you know, if you want to wear your, if you want to wear Malo, if you want to come out and participate in whatever way you want to engage as completely culturally as makes sense for you and in tune with the ocean and nature, we welcome that and invite that. There's also a required waiver form from Waimānalo Limuhui, from Kikulanui o Waimānalo. It's included in all of the emails. It's also available on Mighty Network. So if you are coming in person, everyone, if they can, I'd love it if everyone completed the session 2 sign up. But if you are coming in person, we need to have that waiver signed. And most of you have done that already. So thank you very much for that. I don't know if you have already, but one of the things this is a resource we've shared out multiple times. It was also shared by Kainalu Stewart, who visited us back in December. And it is the planning and outlining your story and how to set yourself up for success. And this is I think a really helpful framework and guide for how we can think about creating our story maps. Of course, encourage us to dig into existing story maps that we like and learn from those to see what we can create. But that is, it's a resource that I hope we keep coming back to. And this is going to really take us into the rest of our conversation for the rest of today. I just want to highlight one other thing before I stop sharing and reflect a little bit on Mauna Lua, and that this story map is living on and evolving. For example, you can see the recording from Saturday's session with Charlie and Katie. That's been posted. We have some updates. Some of the resources for Waimnalo have been posted as well. This was a cool video from a friend, Tom Penna, who runs an Instagram account called Homai Kopono, just showing the moon during our January 22nd session. We'll post the same thing from February 5th. But yeah, we have the ability to kind of stay tuned in using this story map, and you can find the waiver there, for example, in the sign up form. Really cool flyer that Waimānalo Limuhui made for us, Tech and Aina, which we'll dig into in a minute. You'll find sunrise and sunset information. The NOAA tide charts are available, and then a little bit of just some session information in terms of timing and location and stuff like that. So just wanted to kind of point back to that. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to check the chat. Yeah, very cool. Oh yeah, I can imagine that there's lots of schools will have some of these resources blocked. Noi's including Mighty Network. So if you are working in a school context and you need to contact your tech administrator, get permissions for the students to be able to access, you might need to do that. And then I see the question about where's that Google folder located? It is located on Mighty Networks as well as in some past emails, but I will make sure to kind of spotlight that the Mauna Lua folder again, as well as the folder for this week's session, this Saturday session in Waimnalo. And then I think I see the Orozco Vargas Ohana or Melissa raising her hand. Don't know if that's on purpose, but happy to have questions. So.
Yes, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I was thinking, sorry, my camera's off right now. I'm in the kitchen. Wondering so one of the things I was thinking about for my hui and maybe for everyone is like making a little, I don't know, video, like a highlights, check-in kind of, instead of sending a text, or just to like cliff notes of your emails, so that people kind of have a quick breakdown, kind of like what you're doing right now, right? Like highlights of what's happening. This is a week where we got stuff going on. Like, let's, especially for the big events, and when we have sessions, like, here's what we're going to learn this week, and wondering if that's something that we might, or I mean, maybe I could help, or if we could even rotate, like, among hui captains, doing this sort of breakdown of the stuff that you convey to us, because I know sometimes there's a lot of details, but just to give people who, help people to navigate, I think, the information that you give us. I don't know if that's something that you think would be useful.
Yes, please. What else do I need to do? I know that those emails are overwhelming to create, and I never know if, I don't get enough feedback on. I get some feedback. Wow, that's a lot. There's a lot here, and there is. And what I don't want to have happen is that people feel like they're not being cared for and they're not being informed with enough information. So I don't want that to happen. But I also think, some of our kumu that were excited to participate in the beginning, I think they're still excited to participate, and the emails can feel really overwhelming in a time where there's already a lot of overwhelming things going on. So, and the reality is that our program is designed, and the intention is that it's really flexible how you can engage, and to what extent you want to invest is really what makes the most sense for you and your communities. But Melissa, if you have some ideas about how I can, and if anyone has some ideas on how I can transition to communicating more effectively. I won't say less or more, but just more effectively, so that it doesn't become so much. I would love that feedback. And then if there's additional ideas from hui captains or others about, how we can create little synopses, little highlights, little posts that really just kind of capture the essentials, that would be beautiful. And I can try to do that too. But we also have that access on Mighty Networks. You can create a short video and post very easily on Mighty Networks. So I would love for us to start trying to use that platform for that. But I think it's a really, really smart insight and question is, how do we have the version of information that's just like a little bit that people need, the right information at the right time, instead of all the information all the time.
Yeah, I think for some, because for those maybe those who haven't been able to like really dive in just yet, right? Like once you get in, I think it's easy to figure out like okay, here's what we got to do, right? Like once you go and you do something, then it's a little bit easier. But until that happens, I think, yeah, just keeping everyone, you like this is interesting to you, have the time for this, okay, here's where you find all of those details, right?
Yeah. I know that, for example, one of the things it makes me think about is for some of our school-based hui, I'm actually making myself available to visit them either virtually or in person so that it doesn't become like an extra lesson or another thing that they have to sort out. They can have more direct support. Um, so I'm happy to do that as well for any of the hui. I think that can fit. But really, I think the people who are going to know what your hui need and members of your hui need are going to be those of you who are already engaging, and it's the hui captains, So I don't want to ask. I'm already asking a lot of you to participate in this program and lead those hui, and I don't want to put undue stress. But if there is a way to share that kuleana and help each other out as hui captains, communicating just the essentials, I would really support that and see what I could do to make sure that that was successful. So yeah, let's talk about that some more, and we can even use the sort of chat feature or use Mighty Networks to have that discussion if we want to. Happy to have it over email or phone too, if that's sometimes those are easier. But yeah, I would love for other ideas about what would work best to help hui captains communicate with their teams.
I'm not sure if this is helpful. I really appreciate all your emails, Kumudan. Um, and then I send it off to our crew. But then what I also do is I created since we are on Google, our crew is on Google. I create and I invite them. I create a calendar and I just invite them. So I piecemeal some of what you put in your emails onto a calendar and then make notifications, like maybe 2 or 3 days before the deadline so that they'll get it in slow bites as well. They'll have the overall email that I sent to them, but then they'll have those reminders come through their calendars. I'm not sure if that's helpful for others, but I noticed that that's been helpful for our crew.
No, it sounds really, really helpful and like something I should have thought of and made sure was done and ready for the program for everybody. And I wonder if it's possible for the Google Calendar that you're creating for the program to be something that could be shared uh, across all of the participants, or if it's just unique to your hui. And if it's just unique to your hui, that's fine. That's definitely okay. But I would love, this just gives me a great idea to, this is a great idea that
Yeah.
you've had. So
It,
I can build a whole program wide Google Calendar, and that way people can share that more easily if yours wouldn't work for that purpose.
so I know that everyone who's on my email, the email that you send out, I could invite them as a guest to my Google Calendar post. You know how you do
Yep.
that?
Yep.
But I'm wondering if I maybe Mighty Networks has that capability. I'm not sure if it's embedded in that
I'll
or
look
even the
in.
ArcGIS. I'm not sure.
I'll
But
look into Mighty Networks and how we could maybe set up notifications to go out. I think the cool thing about Google Calendar is so many people already using it. And so they're going to get those notifications naturally in the mix of their day. They don't have to go somewhere else to look for it. So I could, and we're still trying to get all of the folks to join Mighty Networks, but I will, yeah, this is a good one. I will talk with the project team about what they think we should do next steps, but I will, we will, no matter what, have a Google Calendar by next week. I'll give myself a deadline by next week for, the remainder of the program that people can access and have included on their calendars. They'll be invited to. So I'll make sure that we have that. And Noi, I might reach out to you if I think that the one you've already created might be able to serve a role in that. Is that
yeah,
okay?
yeah, Hikino. And basically what I just do is I cut and paste, because you write those details. I just cut and paste the portion that's related to a specific date and I put that on the calendar with the link so that they can just go in. And then I make sure the notification is maybe a couple or 3 days before, so they got a heads up when things are due, so that they can go in and click on the link and do what they have to do, sign up or get into the Zoom or whatnot. But
You
yeah,
know what?
yep, go ahead.
You know what I'm thinking we might do, Noi, is, and we can chat about this on Mighty Networks in the Hui Captains chat, but maybe if everyone shares their email in that chat, and then Noi, you could invite all of the Hui captains to that email, and then if you click on the Google Calendar where it allows folks who are invited to invite others, then they would be able to share that invitation with their own Hui. So you're not stuck kind of managing that whole communications for everybody. But I can maybe talk with you tomorrow about if you want to do that and how. But if there's some interest, you all can feel, and this is to Melissa's question too, this is really your program. So if you see a need, if you see something that you want to see happen, feel free to let me know, because maybe I can help. But I want you guys to be able to make this what you want it to be and what you need it to be. So yeah, please feel free and encouraged to do that. And there's a lot of amazing Ike, there's a lot of amazing experience in this group, people who are doing incredible work, have done incredible work, will do incredible work, who are masters of organization, people who are really well suited to help lead this group. And so I want to invite everyone into those, wherever you see yourself as helping to lead this group. Thank you for making that known and sharing that with us, because it's really the powerful part of this experience. So mahalo. All right, so I think that conversation's not over, but I think we can continue that conversation in other spaces and try to come up with some good experiments over the next week or so. Hey, Kayla, I'm super excited for Saturday, and I'm already getting excited for the 19th too. I'm trying to kind of keep my focus on just being excited for this Saturday, because it's going to be so amazing. Not to put too much pressure on Ikaika, but the place delivers. Waimnalo is beautiful, God's country, as they like to say. And I think we're in for a real treat this Saturday. Whether you're tuning in virtually or joining us in person, it's going to be very, very special. And the 19th is going to be really, really rich too. But that then makes me think, oh my gosh, that means that in a month's time, all of you are going to be out in your own places, using these different tools and thinking through how to create these stories. And so there's a lot of learning. There's a lot of exploration. There's a lot of good question asking that needs to happen over the next month. So one way I'd like to do that is just think about that experience in Mauna Loa Bay. And it was a really, really special day for me. And what I really appreciate is that everyone had a really unique window on Mauna Loa Bay that day. I was there the whole day and trying to organize, and most of the time I was like holding a silly camera in my hand, right, trying to film things and all of this stuff. And so I had that lens, but I got to be there in the morning, right? And Kekupu's here and Miley helped lead us, right? Our Na'alaka'i, they were helping lead us in Eala'e as we help the sun come between the saddle, between the two mountains. We greeted the sun while the moon was starting to set behind us. A really, really beautiful start to the day. And then we got to walk around in the water in the cold, walk around to meet Austin and go sailing on Uluvehi. He took us out on the water back and forth and told us so many amazing stories. And we came back to the beach, and then we learned about Follow the Drop from Lauren, and the Lakra Johanna invited us to explore their home and test this thing out. And there's so many stories already just embedded in that, right? There's so many stories. We could tell a whole bunch of stories of just Nainoa and Papa Mau, Piaulug, and how they use that Mauna Loa Bay as their classroom. We could build 100 story maps just from those stories themselves. And that took us all the way to the, all the way through the day, all the way to the evening as Bruce Blankenfeld was pointing with his laser pointer to all of the star lines, drawing the star lines for us in the night sky, the super clear night sky on the beach there in Paiko, and telling us about Joe Paiko and who was the konohiki of this region and who you would have to go talk to if you wanted to fish, whose permission you would need. And I think about the konohiki and I think about what an important story to start retelling and reimagining in our communities. And so, you know, whether it's managing stormwater or it's fishing rights or it's learning how to navigate or it's the story of restoring those springs. We learned about Kalau Ha'i and the destruction of that lava tube and the waste, what should be a criminal waste of this vai, this fresh water that should be serving the land, right? And helping care for the people of these communities, but it's wasted, but that's being restored. And we learned about the coral that's bleaching because our sea levels, our sea temperatures are rising, but it can still survive, right? We have people working to restore that coral and demonstrate its resilience in Mauna Lua Bay. So there's this story of resilience that's really remarkable too. And so it's almost impossible to tell the story of Mauna Lua because Mauna Lua has infinite number of stories and it's just one place. So part of the challenge in doing this exercise is really taking this incredible holistic experience we have and relationship we have with each other and with places and finding the right story to tell. And I would love to hear other people's reflections in the chat or out loud about that day and what stories stood out to them. And then I would just like to thank Ikaika because he taught me, you know, we went into Mauna Lua Bay. I was just excited to see people, to be out in the field, to be experiencing a place, to start the program. But Ikaika brought a real intentionality. He said, we have an opportunity here, and he's been really thoughtful and smart and creative and diligent about thinking about the story map, which is, it's not built, but he's pulled together a lot of great thinking. And I appreciate Ikaika too. So after we share any mana'o we had from our experience of Mauna Lua Bay, either virtually or in person, then I'm going to pass it over to Ikaika, who will share with us for a little bit about what he's been thinking about in terms as we come into his community there in Waimnalo, as we're invited in. How can we help create the stories and the story map that that would really serve that community, which should be our intention in all of our communities. So, any mana'o, any mo'olelo, any stories that stood out to people from our first session together back in Mauna Lua a week and a half ago?
Yeah, I was with like my I guess who is like wipeout crew with you know, Pawas. And there's not really that many of us, but like I went in the later session, you know, to listen to Bruce Blackenfield. Like he talks a lot about like the Mauna Lua area, especially about the bay, Paiko too. And like remember he mentioned a little bit maybe like about like Havea, which is like really a little bit further back in the valley, in Mauna Lua. Which is like I liked when he talked about that place because like I do a lot of volunteer work over there, and so like when he was talking about just a little bit about some of the how the place used to look before the transformation of like Hoikai, or from Mauna Lua to Hoikai. Kind of wanted to ask him more about like what he remembered from that place, but I mean he was already moving on at that point. But I found it pretty interesting. Like he was able to talk about so many places in the Mauna Lua area, and then he came back to, you know, kind of where we were sitting at the beach. Then he, you know, transitioned to navigation by stars and everything. But like, yeah, his stories about Mauna Lua I thought were like the most interesting.
Oh, mahalo nui noa. No, thank you for being there on Saturday. I was so stoked to have you there and have the Wipeout crew represented. I thought a lot about, you know, I wish every community, and I hope every community does have the equivalent of the Wipeout crew. It doesn't have to be called that, but it's a cool name. But yeah, the work that you young people are doing to care for, learn about and care for your community is awesome. And we need that everywhere. For those who don't know, Wipeout Crew is a student club focused on sustainability, Aina, culture, resilience, regeneration, the environment at Kaiser High School in Mauna Loa in Hawaii Kai. And so led by Paul Balas, who also came out. And Noah, I think you had a friend or two with you too. And we appreciate you. And one of the things I love about what Uncle Bruce was able to do, and you described it beautifully, is to him, the place is all one, right? To him, it's just home. You know, it's all connected. You know, there's no like, yeah, there's some lines between, hey, when you cross this line, you have to ask this person to fish. And if you cross that line, you have to ask this person to fish. But all of those places are like woven into his whole life. And I think that's, you know, we could do a whole story map on Mauna Loa in Uncle Bruce's eyes, you know, just through his stories alone would be a pretty cool story map. So actually a pretty epic collection of story maps. So yeah, I appreciate you being there and showing up and taking all of that in with Uncle. We could have sat there probably till sunrise again, just talking story with Bruce. That was really fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Kumudan, this is Noi with Kalau Iva Ka'alele. We unfortunately couldn't be there with you folks in person, but we were with you folks on the Zoom on all 3 sessions. And I really wanted to thank you for that, allowing that opportunity for us to be there virtually. It's not the same experience, but we did learn a lot. And what I wanted to share from the first session that morning, although we weren't able to holova'a with you folks, I thought that having that be the very first experience with the va'a and with learning the pānana and how to use the map, right? Well, with the different hale, I thought that was a really good way to start the program off as an experience of navigating and navigating our way through what the kupuna have shared with us and the ike that has been brought down to us, that we can continue to use it today in our contemporary society. And I just wanted to thank you folks for that opportunity. And also that notion that we stand in the center of that compass. Yeah, it's the compass. That we stand in the center of that compass, and this whole experience that we're going to go through in future navigators, I think, was just kind of summed up in that very first initial experience of the pānana, and being able to look to the horizon, look to the stars, look to all the elements that are before us, and allow that to guide us forward for our people and for our aina. So mahalo.
Oh, that was beautiful, beautifully put. And that was, I would like to take credit for being some like mastermind of beautiful program design and placing the navigation lesson right there. But when I asked Austin, I said, hey, Austin, let's go sailing. We need to go sailing. He said, okay, but we got to go early because we got to get the high tide. So it was the moon. It was the moon that made that decision for us, not me and my wisdom. So it was, we can give thanks to Mahina and to the ocean for figuring that one out. But it was a great way to start. I agree. And we'll go sailing again sometime. But yeah, the star compass, I think, is an important thing. We're going to orient to it again on the 19th. We'll get to visit with Kamaki Worthington, and just as a little sneak preview, we'll get to visit a navigation heiau on the North Shore, a really special site there, and learn about navigation from that the ancestors mapped out, the amazing maps they created, story maps they created in their own minds as they sat in their navigator's chair at the heiau on the pohaku and looked out at the ocean and found new islands in their mind with those star lines. So yeah, we're gonna, our last thing we do together in these first 3 model sessions will be to revisit that compass, this time at night, and from the position of the heiau. So gonna be special full circle. Again, none of my genius, all the genius of the elements and of the amazing community that we're lucky to be a part of. So really, really thankful for that. Yeah. Any other, of course, this is taking longer than I thought it was going to take, but it's also beautiful. So I'm happy to hear, you know, a couple more reflections if anyone wants to share.
Hi. We were there, Kupo and I were there in the early morning session at Waimnalo, and it was very impactful knowing that that was when we were out with Austin on the Va'a, that was really the place that brought, you know, Nainoa to his level of expertise and training. I mean, just knowing this was the classroom, that was very impactful because we just don't see that whole area of the island the way we are learning too, you know, and even the names and everything. So I really appreciated Austin's sharing, and also Uncle Bruce at night, you know, that thank you for, it was like a podcast because we couldn't see anything. We were just listening, but the stories were unreal. So yeah, so mahalo. And Kupu? No, she's not going to share right now. Okay. But anyways, thank you for, yeah, I guess the moon takes credit, but it was awesome. Dan, thank you for, you know, for your leadership in all of this, really.
Oh, mahalo for that. I'll receive that and say thank you. I'm enjoying working on this so much. It doesn't feel like work, and that was such a special day of learning for me too. And you're absolutely right. I think one of the stories that is coming to the surface for me and has been since that experience is that we need to raise ourselves. We need to raise our children, our families, our communities out in those spaces. Bruce was very eloquent when he just said, I said, Bruce, how do we get more people out into the ocean having this experience like you had growing up? And he said, well, it's right there. It's sitting right there. So, you know, it's this beautiful resource that can change our life and our world. I know Ikaika and Kimiona, I can't tell you, like, I think I see, especially Kimiona, who we'll all get to spend time with on Saturday. I don't think a day goes by I don't see a post of that guy out in the water, moving rocks around, doing some kind of work on the land and in the ocean. And I know Ikaika loves it out there too, and spend as much time as he can. So, you know, there are practitioners, there are communities who are saying these are the spaces that we need to occupy. These are the spaces of our ancestors, but they're also the spaces of our future. And so we need to be there drawing those links. And I think the ocean is home for us here in Hawaii. There's no escaping it. We're surrounded by the largest body of water on our planet, and Moana Nui Akea is our home as much as any one island is our home. So I love those stories too, and would love to see a story map that paints that bay as a classroom so that more people can understand what's the lessons it's taught over the years and the lessons it still has to teach us. I think it would give us a lot of hope. So I'm going to work with hopefully Noah. I hope Noah will join me and some of the Wipeout crew from Kaiser High School. We're going to work with the Malama Maunalua team, who spends so much energy stewarding that space. We'll work with Austin and Bruce and a lot of the folks who helped make that day so special and trying to figure out the story map to build. I love Melissa's, well, I love Koa's reflection. It should be school every day. And I don't disagree. I know we could have long debates about, well, what else do we need to learn? What tests do we need to pass? But yeah, I love that reflection. Koa and I should be out there every day. I'm with you, Koa. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you all for listening and for sharing. I do want to make sure I can run through kind of the tech preview pretty quickly. So we can go, we don't have to go super in depth this week. We will have another session next Wednesday where I'm going to try to spend some time actually taking the assets and different things, the data that we gather, and actually showing people the other side of the technologies, not just the data collection, but also how do you start visualizing? How do you start creating maps? How do you start creating videos? These sorts of things, so that people can see the whole process from data collection. We're going to kind of talk about our plan today, and then we'll be in the field doing it on Saturday. And then next Wednesday, we're going to start playing around with how do you start putting this into an actual story map and start, you know, creating the rough edges of this thing that we're trying to build. And hopefully that gives everyone some confidence to start doing that on their own and start really imagining their own plan for what they want to do in their own communities as well. I know some of you already have really rich imaginations and visions for what you want to accomplish, but for those of us who are feeling a little stuck or haven't just gotten started yet, hopefully this week will help us do that. So Ikaika, I'd like to hand it over to you to share, just if you want to take the floor and kind of share your sort of introduction and welcome. I think many of the people on this call have met you either in person on Saturday or in past Zoom calls. You've been an amazing project team member to work with. But yeah, you shared with me, you don't have to run everybody through the incredible Google document that you've created. But really, Ikaika has put some work and time into imagining what some different sections of these maps could be and what its purpose and audience might be. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about your process and your thinking, Ikaika, and that gives us some context for, you know, we want to show up on Saturday ready to help create the thing that the Waimānalo community, the Kekulanui o Waimānalo and Waimānalo Limuhui teams who are inviting us really want to build. So we want to be useful data collectors and story processors and imaginers and creators. So yeah, shoots. Ikaika, with that, I'll throw it over to you.
Thanks. I did have one reflection. I wanted to be last, then that way I can lead right into mine. But one reflection, I attended the afternoon session. I really wanted to do the morning session, but we had a group at our place, so we had to take care of that first, and then we were able to come on over and do invasive lemur removal, which is kind of nice because I've known Alex them and their work for a long time and never been able to get over there to help do some of the invasive lemur removal. Where we do lemur planting, they do removal over there. And so it was kind of interesting to see how destructive invasive lemur can be on the environment, where we're trying to grow native lemurs back and also trying to pull out whatever invasives that we find along the way and make sure we kind of weed and clean up what we have on our side in our ocean. So I just wanted to say that about this weekend or the other weekend's event. But about Waimnalo, so Dan asked us to join the project team, I guess, before he put the word out for all of you guys to join in. But what I really liked about the project was the tech aspect of it. I'm a tech person. If you noticed, our waiver was an electronic waiver that you folks can sign. I'm totally an advocate of using tech to make your job easier, right? All of those Google Forms, Google Calendars. I mean, we have a Google form that all of us try to complete and fill out together when we're done working on the weekends. And it's a kilo form. You know, it tells us what did we see today, how much rock did we build today, what types of lemur did we plant, how many pounds of lemur did we put in, or how many pounds of invasive did we remove. And we capture all of that data so we can make adjustments as we move forward. Other tech tools that we like to use, we own a drone. I can fly the drone and I can take pictures and video. I can't do no cinematic production of anything, but I can definitely take pictures and videos. And then we use that to kilo. So another part, so Waimānalo Limuhui has two functions. The first function is to transplant or to put spore-rich lemur back into the ocean to try and get our natives to grow again here in Waimānalo Bay. And then we started planting those spore-rich lemur on what used to be the remnants of Pahono, which was or is the only known turtle pond in the state, where everyone else has a fish pond, we have a turtle pond. because our Ali Kui Kui love to eat turtle and wanted to be able to serve that whenever a visiting Ali was coming through. So we have a turtle pond, and it's been neglected for years and years. We've all grown up swimming in the area, in the pond, because it was confined and safe and easy to learn and swim in. But because we were planting limo on the wall, we decided that it was also our responsibility to take care of the wall. We're part of the KUA network, so we also have access to all of the whole entire fish pond network. So we were able to learn from places like Pai Pai Oheia, or went to Lanai a few times. We tried to go and visit Joy on her island and help her out with her fish pond at one point, just so we could learn and touch different rocks and build in a different space. That didn't happen because of COVID, but we're still trying to work that out. But our situation out here is a little unique. We're on the east side of the island, open to the elements, and as much as we build and as much material that we keep putting and as high as we've stacked the wall, Kanaloa comes in over the winter and teaches us a hard lesson. Tells us exactly where it's not built correctly, pushes it all down and has us rebuild it again the next year. So we've used the kilo forms and the tech to kind of monitor and log all of the data of what areas came down, when the storm was, so that we know, kind of when to expect something coming. I mean, we definitely use apps like the Tide app and watch the winds and stuff so that we can kind of predict and know when to, yeah, it might not be traditional kilo. I'm not on the beach like watching the birds and the winds, but just the same, we're using tech to do similar types of kilo. And we use the drones to map where we got lickings and we adjust. So where a lot of the other fish ponds build at kind of a 90-degree on the exterior wall, we've done it as far as 45 degrees. And that was a huge learning curve to be able to build it in that fashion. And most of the 45 is kind of stayed up. But one section that we're trying to build out right now, or rebuild right now, I should say, we're kind of looking at the speed bump in Nuuanu and kind of making it round, because we know, I mean, it's state property. I know I can't stop anybody from being in the pond. The reality of being able to use it to rear turtles or fish or whatever is probably not there. So maybe the wall doesn't have to be as tall and can just be, more of a speed bump to keep most of the waves out, but allow the high tide to come rolling in. So we use that, and we use tech and try and kilo in that respect. So being part of the team, like I thought it was our goal when we were bringing people over to come to our space to learn all of this tech, because you guys are going to be making your own story maps. And just for my own story map, like I thought it was a map, like a literal map with points on it and mountains and whatever. And that's what I was thinking initially. I didn't realize a story map was that long, like website that tells the story of your place, and it includes some maps, and some of this cool tech that you can use. But after I Googled around and I looked up a couple of videos, and then Dan shared that one resource from National Geographic that had like 30 different websites, or maybe it was 25, something like that. So I kind of, what I did was on my Google Drive, so that I could share it out with the rest of my team, kind of just did an outline of what I thought was going to be my story. And the story is just of Waimānalo Limuhui, but for Kekulanui or Waimānalo, we have 8 major programs, and one of them is our aquaponics program that Joy was a part of on Maui. We're starting to expand to other islands. So to be able to use that 1, 2, 3 feature and send something out to all of our participants, they can say whether or not what their address is, so it shows up on a map, and whether or not their system is active, turning it red or green would be awesome to show funders to try and get more grant money to do all of the things that we like to do, or, you know, but then I also looked at all of the different story maps that were in that National Geographic website. And I picked the parts that I thought would match something on my outline. And then in the comments, I just put, oh, okay, I'm going to use the swipe feature here, or maybe this part of my story could be something with that 1, 2, 3 feature, or using the drone to show maps of before and after, you know, when we make design changes and stuff like that. And that's kind of what I shared out with Dan, and where we came up with the plan for this weekend. Yeah, you guys are going to be helping us collect some data for us, but the hope is that you folks are going to be able to learn all of this tech too, so that you guys can use it in your own spaces. I mean, the resources there, you guys can borrow all of this equipment, or hopefully get access to some equipment within your community or from Purple Mai'a. But I just wanted to be sure that all of you guys got some tech training besides just Zoom. You can't learn how to fly a drone over Zoom, that's for sure. I think that's all I got. That's probably more than I thought I was gonna say, but I wanted to give Dan some time to be able to introduce some of the tech that we're gonna be using this weekend.
Awesome. And Ikaika, you can jump back in at any time, and anyone else can interrupt, but it's exactly right. We thought, you know, we have some tech resources that can make the job of storytelling richer and easier, but can also allow us to do some interesting kilo. We're going to try to we're going to try to up Kekulanui, Waimānalo's, and Ikaika's drone game with this ArcGIS resource, as well as a pretty, I think, an exciting opportunity to work on the Autodesk platform through their technology impact program. They've given each of the hui access to their suite of 3D modeling tools and visualization tools, which are kind of professional standard in construction and architecture and design. And we're going to apply it to the land and other spaces, turtle ponds, places in our community that we value the most and that we want to bring to life. But that's what I want to talk about. So that was a perfect introduction. Ikaika, maybe before I jump into the tech, does anyone have questions or want to throw out any sort of comments or mana'o for based on what Ikaika just shared?
Quiet group.
That's okay. That's okay. So I'm gonna show. Let's see. I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen. I won't be able to see most of you while I'm doing this. I have to turn it off. So if you want to say something, just unmute. I'm just going to highlight this resource again, the planning and outlining your story. This has, I think, a lot of great advice. I think going through that collection that is available to you on our story map that Ikaika was referencing from the Nat Geo and Esri Story Mapping Challenge on oceans, I think that's a great, if you go through those, you're going to see just about every different design feature in story maps, and they're all pretty simple to use. He also mentioned Survey 123, and I really do think Charlie's talked a lot about this in Saturday's training. I'm not going to rehash it all, but if you all go to this link, I'll throw this one in the chat, so pardon the screen interruption, but I'll throw that link in the chat. If you go to Survey 123, and you have an ArcGIS account, if you've gotten one of our organizational accounts, it'll take you to this website where you won't have any surveys yet, but you can easily create a new survey. I did it really quickly right before the Mauna Lua session, created this Celebrate Life survey for people to be able to take. You have that link. I'll share it out again. We can use it at any time, doesn't only have to be used at that session. But one of the things we're going to do together on Saturday is we're going to create a survey for the purposes of what data do we want to crowdsource here at Pahonu and Kaiona? What information would we like to gather from ourselves as participants, but also maybe from the community? One idea that we have is we may be able to put signage up at Pahonu, we could include a QR code that linked to the story map or linked to a survey 123 and allowed people to include some important data. Maybe we want to do something related to biodiversity, or something to do with the state of the rock wall, or something to do with tide or weather conditions, things like that. All of those things are possible. And then once you have the data, we're not going to go into it tonight, but once you have that data, there's a lot of different analyses that you can do. But in order to do good analyses, you have to have good data. And so Charlie really emphasized that on Saturday. We want to practice creating small survey 123s that allow multiple people to input data into a map that we can incorporate into our story and into our story map. And Ikaika talked about, not really knowing, that this was story maps was like a full website. Your story map can be very short. You could create a single map and just have some really beautiful analysis. We have really powerful tools at our disposal. I'm happy to coach people and guide people and point people in the direction of learning those tools at as sophisticated of a level as they want to. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you're going, oh, we learned how to do this basic thing, but we really want to do something a little more in depth. ArcGIS has a lot of resources. I'm available to you. Charlie and Katie are incredibly generous and available to you as well. So there's lots of different levels of expertise ready to help you, but we all want to be familiar with Survey 123 as a tool, and we want to start thinking about how can we create something? How can we design? It looks like a Google form, but it's got this really important location data that's tied to it. You can have people upload images. If I go back to, or if I enter into this survey, maybe I'll just launch a new one from a blank survey, just to show you some of the design features for those of you who weren't there on Saturday, right? It's gonna ask me to provide some information in the beginning. I'm gonna kind of skip through it. But this data that you collect through these forms all goes automatically into a GIS database, into a map, right? So here are all the different choices, right, along the right side of the screen, different kinds of questions that we could create. There's kind of an art and science to good survey design. You can play around, maybe you know a lot about that, but you're free to play around with it. All surveys have to include an address or a map to allow this location data to pin it to a map, but there's all kinds of questions. You can also edit the appearance of that, design the survey to look the way that you want it to look. So this is a tool that we want to start getting more familiar with, and we'll be building one together on Saturday. Next Wednesday, we'll be playing around with the different data sets that we collect and start thinking about how could we visualize these? How could these show up in a story map that we want to share? Yeah, this is the link. I think I've shared it. In several other places, but I'll quickly throw it into the chat too. This is from Saturday's training with Charlie. Katie Talladay shared this video with us, recording of that session. This video is also linked in many different places on Mighty Networks and in emails, but I'll include this one as well, just in case you don't have to go searching for it. And I found this video really, really helpful in just describing what we're going to be doing on Saturday. So we're not going to watch the whole thing, but I want to kind of showcase a little bit about the process that we're going to use. So I'm going to scroll down. We'll try starting right around here. And I think I'm sharing my audio. Let's see if this works.
It's information about the camera sensor and the optic. These geotagged photos can be processed by software programs such as Drone Deploy, Pix4D, and others to create 3D models with high detail and accuracy. To get the best results of creating a 3D model with your drone, you need to do two things. First, you need to make sure there is a 60 to 70% overlap between your aerial photos. This helps the triangulation process be more accurate and track the same points between images. Flight apps such as Drone Deploy and Pix4D Capture allow you to create automated flight paths and set your desired image overlap. The second thing you need to do is make sure you capture photos of your subject at different angles and altitudes. Typically, you want to capture straight down images from around 100 to 200 feet. Then you want to circle your subject at a high altitude with about a 30-degree angle. Next, fly at a middle altitude with around a 45-degree angle, and lastly, fly at a lower altitude with a 70-degree angle. You of course also want to adjust your radius to keep the subject in frame. Capturing these different angles and altitudes helps create a higher quality 3D model by providing texture and image data of both the sides of the building and the top of the building.
So we just saw the process that we're going to basically attempt to do on Saturday morning of Pahonu, of the pond. So we're going to have some flight paths and some grids kind of mapped out to actually capture all of these images. We're not only going to create the 3D model of the pond, but we're also going to try to create a 2D base map. We'll share about all of those settings on the drone. Ikaika said we can't teach how to fly a drone over Zoom, and he's right, but we're still going to try. So we're going to be giving some instruction. It'll be live streamed. As I explained, we'll even include, just in case you're not learning how to fly a drone, but you just want to see what the camera looks like from the drone, we'll do our best to stream that to the Zoom. So excited for that experience. And you will have a chance if you show up. Either in the morning or afternoon session, we'll have drones up in the air because we want people to realize that these are tools for science. They're tools for Kilo. We're not just in it we don't just want to use drones to make incredible movies and capture, cool short films. That's cool too, and those uses are relevant, but we do want to really help us imagine, why would we use a drone in our place? Why would this aerial view, why would that be important to us? And so when I think about that question, that drone photogrammetry really allows us to create special images, right? Special images of places that we otherwise wouldn't be able to capture. And they allow us to get that up-to-date 3D model of a place. And it puts where we get to point the camera is now up to us. And so the data that we collect and the data that we share, those decisions are owned by us. And I don't think that's insignificant. I think that's a really significant part of the process. And so what we're trying to do through this program is say, here are some resources to collect really, really incredible data, to build 3D models. We'll talk a little in just a couple minutes about where those 3D models can go. But for now, they're going to live as map scenes. Some of you might decide to create Sketchfab accounts and have a whole collection of 3D models that you want to create. We have a set of drones that we can get into your communities if you don't have your own. So we want people to be able to practice using these. We got some great footage using the drone on last Saturday in our session when we went sailing. You can see some of that footage at the top of our story map. So we have access. I just want to mention, I think I said the Autodesk technology program, they have granted us two licenses for two different sets of applications, software applications for each HUI. So if you have someone who's really interested in 3D modeling and design, or who really wants to sort of experiment with this drone photogrammetry, we have access for really, really amazing products that can make doing this work. They're a little bit technical. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but we're going to support you in learning how to do that. We may even get to a little bit of this in Autodesk next Wednesday, but it might wait till the following week. But yeah, I'm excited about that. There is a resource that explains a little bit more of the technical side of drone to map for those of you who are thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to capture this footage in a drone. And I want to be able to create these 3D models and these up-to-date base maps of my own locations. Outstanding. And this resource can help you do that. I have this article up because one, Ruth Gates, who I mentioned earlier, And John Burns, who heads the Mega Lab at Hilo, for years have been piloting this technique. They've been developing photogrammetry workflows to be able to map 3D coral reefs in 3D. And that's a really incredible, innovative application of this same process, the same photogrammetry process to a new environment, an underwater environment. And it's really revolutionized our capacity for studying the health of coral reefs. And it's becoming more and more accessible, right? It used to be something that only coders and scientists and folks who are really into this field could think about and could understand and could do. But we're going to show you some ways in the field on Saturday afternoon how you can start experimenting with photogrammetry with something as simple as a GoPro. People who are mapping coral reefs are using DSLR cameras and camera housings with strobe lights. We actually have one of those for you too. If someone really wants to give it a shot to map some of the coral in their community or some of the underwater structures in their community. So the big question is, we can do all of this and we're getting access to it, but why? What is it for? And that's really what I want to think about as we head into Saturday, is what new power, what new capability to serve our communities does this technology provide? And for me, there's one other bit of technology that doesn't need a huge introduction, but we have a GoPro Max. GoPro Max is GoPro's latest attempt at creating a 360-degree camera, which have been out and played around with and experimented with quite a bit in education and just in the popular community for a while. But we're really interested in virtual reality as well. And one of the reasons I just bring virtual reality up at this point in the conversation of why we're doing this is because I think to construct models of our community on our own terms, to see the future that we want to create in our communities for our own terms, that is real opportunity, right? I think it was Paige who shared an incredible resource to the Mighty Networks page about really decolonizing maps and how maps have been used for hundreds of years to make claims about places and lay claim to places and really wipe out the true stewards and caretakers of a land from those places, to change the place names like we learned about, right? Henry Kaiser maybe can be appreciated for certain things, but the idea that you would steal the name from two sacred mountains and decide you're going to name a place after yourself shows a lack of understanding and appreciation for that place. And so how do we bring that intentionality back to the maps that we create, to the visions that we create? And these mapping softwares don't just help us kilo the present, and they don't just help us understand changes in the past. They really, if we can construct these models and these maps, provide us a platform in our own communities on our own terms to paint a new picture for where we want to go. And I think that that's one of the reasons I get really excited about some of this photogrammetry and 3D modeling. It might sound sophisticated, and I'm not going to lie, like it's pretty technical, and we have a lot of incredible geniuses, not me. We have incredible geniuses who have figured out how to bring this process to life for people like me. And I know that if I can do these things, anybody can. So I'm really excited for all of you, and from the young ones all the way through at all stages, to be able to play around with these technologies. We do have, that being said, we do have opportunities similar to working with Lauren and 3R Water. There are people who don't have enough certified drone pilots to do all of the work that they're currently being asked to do in Hawaii. So I don't only want to think about the work that we're doing in our communities, but I'm thinking about how do we bring resource into our communities. Some of our young ones, if you want to become a certified drone pilot, if you want to help to sort of expand this field of surveying. Many of us know surveying techniques of the past because they'd have to close the road, and you saw the guy with all the measuring equipment on the road and the pole, and have to spend hours, and it would take a long time. a lot of that work is happening by drone. And so there's really, really, potentially empowering knowledge that we can begin to develop. None of us are going to become masters on Saturday, but we're going to hopefully see some new possibilities, whether we're in person or online. And then I am really interested and committed in connecting everyone to whatever resources they need and pathways they need to get onto to pursue anything that they're excited about participating. I also see Jennifer's message. I think, oh my gosh, there's so much for machine learning and AI applications in here. So if one of your goals is just to explore technology through this program, I think we can, I have an interesting project coming up right after Future Navigators wraps. It's called Malamo Mano. It's in Papahanaumokuakea using artificial intelligence and GoPros to study shark populations in the marine monument. Really exciting project that I would love for Future Navigators to be a part of. So, there's all kinds of interesting opportunities, but the main thing we're focusing on is photogrammetry and then also 360 video, right? It's model construction on Saturday. How can we create images of Pahonu? How can we create images of Kaiona that are immersive, that have, this three-dimensional feel to them, using some of the technology that's available to us. And I don't think we'll ever use anything that couldn't be bought with the money that you receive for participating in this program. So there's nothing in that no technology that we're going to be deploying in the field that's totally out of reach for any of our hui or our communities. And we want to make sure that we're not showing you things that, oh, you're only going to get to do one time, because these things are way too expensive and really inaccessible. But these are things that I think all of us can practice and develop, and I'm really excited to see where we take them. So it's we don't have time to go into too much of the plan, but we will be creating those drone images using that photogrammetry technique we saw in the video. And then we also will be capturing the 360-degree video in the afternoon while we're making limule and we're planting limule, and we'll go out onto the reef. We'll capture some underwater 360-degree footage. We'll start thinking about what else would we want to capture? How could we use these tools to help tell the Waimānalo Limu Hui story, and hopefully be able to do some of that. So the only other update that I want to give before I open to questions is that, and I think I included it in an email, is that we've been kind of making sure this Kilo kit and all of the technology is sort of put together and ready to use for our session on Saturday and then again on the 19th. But probably I'll release on the 12th, so not this coming Saturday, but the following, just kind of a request form. And what I ask is that we're gonna, I've put up some images and a list of the stuff that's in the Kilo kit. It's now included. The request form is not live on the story map, but maybe I should share it just to kind of show people what I'm talking about. Apologies. Oh, I mentioned Sketchfab earlier, but I didn't mention it again. Maybe I'll start with this. I'll go backwards just real quick. For those of you who are interested in 3D modeling and maybe new to 3D modeling, this is an AutoCAD's most basic tool for beginners to learn about how CAD or computer-aided design works. It's called Tinkercad, and you'll have access to, it's free actually, everyone can have access, and it allows you to just start creating 3D objects. These are things that are printable if you have access to a 3D printer. They're exportable into different environments so that you can have these models exist in different environments. This is their least powerful tool, but it's a great place to learn. You also have access to all of their other tools, which include kind of the next step up, which is Fusion 360, as well as their whole suite of design and prototyping tools, architectural construction tools. And what I would love to see is for some members of our hui who are interested in this to start really developing a portfolio of models. And if for those people who are interested in that, Sketchfab is a great place to start an account and be able to store your 3D assets, be able to keep all of your different models that you create. So just kind of pointing to that, if for those of you who do get into modeling, it might not happen right away, but if you see what we do on Saturday, and then you see some of the models we're able to create next week, and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to be able to do that, then these might be interesting resources for you. But then this is our story map. All of you are familiar with it. And if I scroll up to the Va'a and then down to our Kilo kit, we just have an image gallery that showcases what's basically available, right? We have a couple of different drones, all pilotable through your phone and a controller that comes with those drones. We have GoPro camera. We have the GoPro Max for 360-degree footage. We do have a DSLR and a camera housing if you're really interested in doing underwater photography that the GoPro is not suitable for. We have an underwater Trident. We have a Trident drone, so that's possible to use. I'm currently having to repair the motors, so the motors got corroded and jammed up. So I'm trying to get the motors on the ROV ready for use. We also have something called a field kit that does all kinds of interesting weather and water related monitoring. And then we have the whole Autodesk suite and of course all of the ArcGIS tools. And those are available to your Hui, and anyone who wants to learn how to do these things, I want to be able to support that. And if you're like, I really am in it for being connected to the space, and my story map is going to be more about recording Oli and communicating the different mo'olelo of our places through Oli, that's beautiful too, right? So Ikaika and I, we're kind of like, we both love the technology. Some of you I know love the technology, but that's not the only way to be in our spaces. So please don't feel like, oh wait, I don't want to fly a drone, they scare me. Don't feel like you have to, it's required. We encourage you to try everything, but we also know that there are really valuable ways of being in our places that don't need any more than just our bodies and our spirits and our relationships with one another in the place. So sometimes technology even gets in the way. And so we want to make sure we make room for those conversations as well. But that's available to you on the story map. So I wanted to make sure I shared that. Keala, my old friend Tinkercad, your favorite. That's right. Some people get frustrated with Tinkercad because you still have to learn CAD, but the products aren't super beautiful, or maybe don't always meet our expectations, or the functions in the program aren't always. But I've built models of local IA, models of rock wall, and actually learned about the process of building rock walls using modeling programs like Tinkercad. So I love. So there's definitely a lot of cool possibilities, and I'm excited to be in the space with you all on Saturday, regardless of the technology that we get to play with. I am going to be quiet. It's 8:30. I filled the space more than I'd like to, but I was glad to get to hear from Ikaika. I was super glad. Not that I wasn't super glad to get to hear from Ikaika, but I was super glad to get to hear from all of you who were able to share some of your mana'o, and thank you to those who have been engaging in the chat. Please connect with one another. That's really what the Mighty Networks is for. The Mighty Networks isn't just another way for me to send you lots of emails, like trick you into getting lots of emails. It's really exists so that you all can become one big Hui, right? Which is what we need for this program to be successful. So you guys are such valuable resources. I learned so much from each of you. And I think my main hope is just that, wow, everyone in this community knows each other by the end. If you leave just knowing you're Hui and me, I'll feel really disappointed. So don't be afraid to kind of reach out and connect with the other folks as well. I'm getting some reservations already in the direct message in the chat. I love it.
Dan, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm over here Can you hear me okay?
I can now.
You can, okay. I'm filling out the Waimānalo waiver,
Yeah.
and I see that you gotta have your vaccination card. Here, you guys don't, you just need the 2 shots on Oahu, right? To be considered vaccinated, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Because here on Maui, we have to have the booster as well. So
I heard they bumped it up to the booster. I thought that was an interesting move, and we can talk about it. We can talk about it when you get here. But yeah, 2 shots counts, and you could. I know some of us have to go, so mahalo nui to everybody, and I will stay on. But I know some of us do have to go, and really appreciate the time. And sorry we didn't get to go in a little more depth, but I think the conversations we had were the right ones, and was really awesome. And look forward to continuing this exploration, and we'll be back on next week Wednesday, and we'll see what we can create with some of the things that we capture on Saturday. So I hope some of you can join us as well. Ahui ho.